But everybody is talking about bodyguards for MPs. Now, these are 3 female MPs that are across the political spectrum. We don't know who they are for security reasons, but they are being given chauffeur-driven cars and close protection officers. This is just after the last week and that debacle we saw in the Commons, which was frankly shameful. What do you make of this?
I mean, it's obviously a terrible situation to be in, where people's lives feel like they're uncertain and unsafe, and they've got to have bodyguards. At the same time, I think it's a good place that we're in, that we can do this, that actually we are able to have people step up and say, I don't feel safe, that there are processes in place so that they can get that protection. And this isn't something new. I was thinking today about the fact that, 30 or 40 years ago, when there was conflict happening between the English government, the IRA, of course, you had Margaret Thatcher at the time, the Prime Minister, in a hotel that was bombed. And that was a really challenging time. People were killed as part of that conflict. And it's something that MPs have faced in the past. I think at the time, we sometimes felt that what was going on was, this hardness. Margaret Thatcher would go out and sort of say how she was unafraid. But, she did have protection officers. She did have cars moving her around. And I think the fact that we're talking about this now and we're saying, look, this is really difficult, is important. You should have those protections, but it would be better to be in a place where we don't need them at all. Well,
that's the point, isn't it? Because one of the fundamentals of our democracy is that our MPs are available to us, that they are easily sought out, they're meant to be easy to talk to. That's what a constituency MP is meant to be. If we start locking constituency MPs behind doors or have intimidating protection around them, where you might want to talk about something really personal, something deeply, that you want to keep to yourself, but you need help from your MP, this is going to change democracy over a fight that is happening somewhere else.
We have to try and keep as much of that constituency link as possible. I lived out in the US for a period of time, and it always struck me as how different it was. You would have a presidential election and there's Barack Obama at the time being sort of flown around in planes, whereas over here in England you'll have politicians in sort of bakery caps out handing out loaves in their local bake. And I think we've got to keep that. I think it actually does mean that there is that personal connection. But then you can also have safety measures. Is it actually fair in a constituency that you have to have meetings with people who you maybe don't know on your own or unsafe? And we've already put in place a range of things, I think, so people aren't going to be meeting people on their own. So you've got to think through what these threats are, and we don't know who these people are or what the threats are that they're facing, but having slightly stepped up security is probably going to be right in the meantime, but it doesn't mean that it will stop that connection.
Well, I hope it doesn't mean that it stops that connection, because as it is, there is no trust. The MPs, Parliament, the political classes appear to have completely eroded the trust that they have with the electorate. The amount of people I talk to say I'm politically homeless, the amount of people who I talk to said I'm not going to vote, and I'm like, no, you must vote, it's really important, or at least go there and spoil your ballot. Do something to register your fury with this, but not out on the streets, not attacking MPs over a decision. And I have to be honest with you, the whole Gaza situation, I mean, it is absolutely disgraceful what's going on out there. It is horrible. There are no winners here, and nobody is going to win this, right? We know that. But whatever we do in this country is not going to affect that. It is not. So why is this intimidation and bullying of MPs? And they've said that they're going to step this up to try and get MPs to be deselected that didn't vote for a ceasefire. It won't make any difference anyway. I'm really confused about this.
I think one of the problems is when each side feels like they're not getting some level of respect. So you'll often hear this idea that it's the other side, we want revenge. And actually what we have to get back to is conversations about what do we do next. And that got lost this week, actually. I think it was a real shame that in a big hoo-ha over parliamentary procedure, and I understand the Speaker of the House did something wrong. He should have listened to his clerks and he apologised.
And I do believe him saying, I offered this extra vote to keep MPs safe is deeply concerning.
And also it wasn't what he should do, right?
No.
That isn't the convention.
No.
So he did something wrong. But I also felt like it got us away from the actual debate, which was about what is the next step here? Like, people want to get into the history, but we do have to think about what happens next. But we also have to recognise both sides. And there's something very powerful at times when both sides can articulate the pain of the other. And that's been a little bit missed in this. And I do feel like the politicians haven't taken steps to try and recognise sometimes the pain of the other.
But haven't we got to remember that we are a tiny player now on the world stage? We really are. We're a tiny little, almost insignificant island off the coast of Europe now. Even if we came up with the perfect plan, it's not our plan. It's not our country. I mean, it's like those people who are saying, oh, well, you know, Zelensky should capitulate to Russia and give him half his... Well, that's not our decision to make. That is Ukraine's decision to make. What happens in the Middle East is the Middle East decision to make. You know, there is very little pressure that we can bring to bear that hasn't already been brought to bear.
Yeah, I do think that as a country we sometimes get the balance of international versus domestic policy wrong. It's something we've done for about 150 years, where we tend to spend a lot of time talking about things overseas when we've got things to solve here. At the same time, though, we can't get away from the fact that international events do affect here. They affect us in lots of different ways. Ukraine, for example, has been a part of why we've had such big inflation. So it's incumbent on us as a major nation, often a very wealthy nation compared to others, to try and do things that make a difference.
Are we a major nation?
Yeah, I think we are still.
Are we?
We are. I mean, I know it feels everything is broken and that we're slipping behind, but at the same time...
Which we are. I mean, look at the NHS is dropping down the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, even our economy is
100%.
dropping down the chart, you know, everything.
But I don't think we can deny the fact that, like, David Cameron is, on a global stage, somebody that is well known. And as the Foreign Secretary, can he intervene and have meetings that others perhaps can't?
Can he be listened to? But is he well liked?
Well, I think there's something about
respected?
trying and being seen to try, because if we were in the circumstances internationally where we needed support and help, we would want to be able to call on others, and I don't think you can step back now.
I haven't heard anybody calling on us, particularly for help.
In this circumstance,
I mean, in Ukraine there is, right? They want money and they want arms and everything, but in the situation in Gaza, I'm not aware of people saying that Britain can go in and affect any changes.
Well, whether we can affect changes or not, the idea that we would let a big conflict situation that could have global consequences and not do anything, I think is unlikely. And again, that is why we have a foreign secretary, to get involved in a whole diplomatic service and a whole bunch of people involved in these things. Whether it should be taking up as much time as it is, whether in fact we should be putting... in Parliament, that for me is a bit of an issue. And I do tend to be somebody who thinks that we should focus on domestic policy at least as much, and it does feel like that has been lost this week.
Well, I'd like them to focus on domestic policy for a minute. I mean, it doesn't seem... And in fact, let's have some policies. Why not? We haven't got any for the election. I haven't seen any. Have you?
No, it does feel as if at the moment things like the NHS, we're not really hearing anything from the current government on what they want to do. And I get it. They're probably going to keep their powder dry for
potential government in waiting either. Have a policy you don't flip-flop on immediately.
Yeah. Labour's obviously the challenge for them is that I think they don't want to say too much without an economic situation that's going to be better for them. But again, I would like to hear some punchier policies. I don't think it's going to be very helpful for them.
I can't think of any real policies.
Well, they want to... So, for instance, even just today in the papers, there's been this fight over how many more doctors we should be training. Labour have said that they would double that. The Conservatives at a certain point have said they would also double it. This year, to do that, you need about 7,500 more doctors, and they've said this year there'll be 350 more places. So the Conservatives have really let themselves down on that. Labour is still saying they will do it, but how they will do it isn't being told.
Yes,
so
that's not
it's very
policy,
easy at the moment to just promise something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's take a call now, and Andre is in Wiltshire. Good afternoon, Andre.
Good afternoon.
What did you want to say about the MPs being given bodyguards? It's a real sorry state of affairs, isn't it?
Well, under the Terrorism Act, anybody that makes a threat against any MPs or any members of Parliament at all, they can be removed from the country under the administration of Anti-Terrorism Act. And that's a statutory...
Well, hang on a minute. That's assuming, of course, that the threat has come from somebody who isn't British.
Well, the thing, it doesn't matter who they are. It's anti-terrorism. It's got no racial discrimination whatsoever.
But you can't remove. It's actually illegal to render somebody stateless. So if it's a British person that was being accused of terrorism offences, there's nowhere to remove them to. You can't legally.
Anybody in this country that's doing anti-terrorism act, if they're not from this country, they can be deported. If they're from this country, they can be arrested.
They can be arrested, yeah, and if they're not from this country, meaning... Okay, but then they need to, I suppose they need to be able to nail down exactly who these people are.
Well, TV all the way around London, it's pretty much, we've got the most amount of CCTV in London. Surely the CCTV should be able to pick out who's done what.
Well, it's online threats as well, don't forget.
Well, whatever, but if you've got online stuff, you've got a PS number.
No, I mean, not always, because people do hide behind stuff, don't they? They hide behind the technology. But I suspect the police are trying to find these people who are threatening MPs, and I suspect they are trying to arrest them.
So if they can't find them, does that mean that our security system is null and void?
Well, not really. It just means they can't be found because they're hiding behind too many layers of technology.
But they can find them. If they can do it in America and they can do it in Europe, why can't we do it in Britain?
No, because I think maybe, Andre, you and I watch too many films where it's easy to track these people down, and it isn't always. They can go through proxies. They can set up fake accounts.
Going on about what's done in the internet system.
Yeah, but people can set up.
Surely Britain's got hackers that are working for the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you can set up fake accounts, can't you, and do it from the library.
So can government. Where did the 8.5 million go during the pandemic? Ta-da!
I don't see what you're talking about.
You don't see what I'm talking about. The relevance is internet banking and internet security is all tied together.
Yeah, but it's different to sending emails, isn't it? Or threats via Twitter or X or...
Where's the difference, sending an email to sending a bank account?
Because you can set up a fake one. You're not going to set up a fake bank account because then you can't get your money out. But you can set up a fake internet account and a fake name and send the emails from a library or something. So how are they going to find them?
Is the difference between terrorism, banking, or personal emails?
I think I've explained it. Andre. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it, Laura? I'm sure the police are trying to track these people down, but it is quite difficult to do so. I mean, having had lots of threats myself on Twitter, now X, these people are very difficult to find.
They are, and also we have this constant problem in the law of the difference between harassment or threats, which are and can still be crimes, but also people who actually do things. And that's the sort of thing, if you actually are attacked, then that person may well be put away in prison. With a lot of threats, they're unlikely to be given prison time. If they are, it's likely to be very short and they can get back out again. And of course, that's because we protect the idea that someone having thoughts about things or someone planning to do something isn't necessarily the same as them doing it. And, stalking cases have this problem all of the time, for instance, where someone is threatening or harassing somebody, but they've not actually done it, and that person can only be put away for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they get back out and they start again. And so there's always this constant balance with this sort of protection of you're sort of waiting for things to happen, but you don't want to wait. And so that's why they put these things in place.
Is it? If it's already too late once it's happened, but in some cases you have to wait until something has happened.
Exactly. And so, and also just building the cases together so that people can be prosecuted, for instance, for planning a terrorist attack. These are very difficult and complicated things to do. They rely on systems of informants, often sources, all kinds of work.
Yeah.
No. And so it's hard. The Met Police, I think, do work hard at it, but it takes a lot of resources. And in the end, if you do it successfully, nothing happens. And that also, no captain ever gets congratulated for taking his ship around the storm, basically.
Yeah, exactly.